Can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rebound and get a road win against the Seattle Seahawks? Let's talk about it. Shout out to Sleeper, by the way. More on them a little bit later on in this video. So, let's talk about the Bucs opponent first in the Seattle Seahawks. They find themselves at 3-1 right now under head coach Mike Macdonald, who is currently in his second year as head coach with the team. They went 10-7 last year. Former Baltimore defensive coordinator, by the way, so he comes from a very good lineage of just coaching pedigree. He was also the former defensive coordinator for Michigan. But the Seahawks find themselves at 3-1 right now. They have won 3 games against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New Orleans Saints, Buccaneers division rival, and the Arizona Cardinals. Their only loss this year was in week 1 versus the 49ers. So they're currently on a 3-game win streak right now. I do want to say this also in terms of points for this team. They have 27.8 points per game. That is 6th in the NFL. For points against, they only allow 16.8 points per game. That is 2nd in the NFL. So pretty darn good numbers and statistics here for this Seahawks team. It is also interesting to note that Clint Kubiak is their offensive coordinator, former OC for the New Orleans Saints. I believe some people wanted him to be the OC for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it did not end up happening. Also, former Buccaneers defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier is the assistant head coach of the Seahawks here. So that is pretty interesting in my opinion. The Seahawks pretty much run the exact same formula the Bucs do, with a West Coast style offense and a 3-4 style of defense as well. Whenever we take a look at who some of the stars are for this Seahawks team, quarterback Sam Darnold continues his career resurgence. He has 905 passing yards this year, 5 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions. He is having a pretty solid year, all things considered. Their lead rusher, far and away, is Kenneth Walker III, 244 rushing yards this year and 3 rushing touchdowns. Their lead receiver, far and away, is Jackson Smith-Njigba, another former Ohio State wide receiver with Emeka Egbuka. He has 402 receiving yards this year, but only 1 receiving touchdown. Cooper Kupp is a part of this team as well, but he only has 162 receiving yards this year so far to this point. The Seahawks did ship away DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was a pretty big blow in my opinion to their offense. They did bring in Cooper Kupp to try and replicate some of what they were missing with not just the loss of DK Metcalf, but also Tyler Lockett. People forget that he is no longer on this team as well, but the receiving core is still trying to figure it out. The third leading receiver, I should say, for the Seahawks is Torrey Horton, who only has 74 receiving yards this year, but does have 2 receiving touchdowns in there. Important thing to note as well, tight ends Elijah Arroyo and AJ Barner are 2 guys worth paying attention to. Arroyo has 82 receiving yards and no touchdowns. Barner has 81 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. I don't believe Elijah Arroyo has any connection to Marcus Arroyo, former Buccaneers offensive coordinator, but, you know, we always like checking in on those things. Interesting note here, though, with Torrey Horton, he does have a punt return for a touchdown this year. It was a 95-yard punt return for a touchdown. With all the problems and woes the Bucs have been having with their punt coverage and just their special teams in general, that may be certainly something worth paying attention to. On the defensive side of things, you have a few guys who have been stepping up. Firstly, in combined tackles, it is Ernest Jones who has been stepping up with 33 combined tackles for this team. He also leads in solo tackles with 18. In terms of his overall career, former LA Ram for a few years, then he was with the Tennessee Titans in 2024, got cut, joined Seattle throughout the remainder of that season. He was honestly somebody I wanted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be interested in last year whenever he was a possible trade option, but the Bucs didn't go ahead and trade for him, unfortunately. So he finds his way to Seattle now. In terms of tackles for loss, Ernest Jones is tied for the lead with a multitude of players: Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Uchenna Nwosu in there as well. Speaking of some of those guys in terms of quarterback hits, your leader is Leonard Williams, former great for a few different teams in New York with the New York Jets and the New York Giants. He has really found his home with the Seattle Seahawks, however. He last year was a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro, and at least had one vote for the Defensive Player of the Year voting. He had 11 sacks last year, so an absolute beast of a defensive lineman for this 3-4 defense of the Seahawks. He has been playing pretty darn well this year. Byron Murphy is second on the team in terms of quarterback hits. He is a former first-round pick, 16th overall in the 2024 NFL draft. He also has 2.5 sacks this year. Finally, you have got Jarran Reed, the veteran nose tackle, who's coming in at 33 years old, almost 33 years old, I should say. He has had a very storied career with Seattle, a little bit Kansas City, a little bit Green Bay, and then returning to Seattle to probably finish up his career. In terms of sacks, as I said, it's Leonard Williams, it's Byron Murphy, it's Uchenna Nwosu who comes in there as well. He is a guy, former second-round pick of the Chargers, but really blew up during his time in Seattle. He had 9.5 sacks in his first year. He has 2 sacks so far this year, 2.5 sacks for Leonard Williams, 2.5 sacks for Byron Murphy in there as well. Whenever we talk about some of these other things like interceptions, Seattle has 7 so far this year. Ernest Jones has 2. Others, safety Kobe Bryant has 2 in there. Darian Kendrick has 2, and Josh Jobe has 2 as well. In terms of pass deflections, Darian Kendrick leads the way with 5. Kobe Bryant is still up there. Josh Jobe is up there as well. I do want to take a quick note at the injury report for the Seattle Seahawks because there is a couple of notable names there defensively that I have not mentioned, and that's because they've been dealing with injuries throughout this year. DeMarcus Lawrence is not going to be playing in this game. Safety Julian Love is not going to be playing in this game as well. And finally, Devon Witherspoon, the best cornerback in this secondary, is not going to be playing in this game also. For the Seahawks, who is going to step up? Well, Derek Hall should possibly slide into that starting linebacker job. Uchenna Nwosu will probably get a lot of significant playing time. In fact, I would go and say Nwosu will probably slot into that other starting edge rusher spot because Boye Mafe is another player that is on this Seahawks defense as a starter. For Julian Love, it'll probably be Nick Emenwari in that starting free safety spot. And then for the cornerback position, really, they're kind of thin at cornerback, all things considered. I don't necessarily know if this is right, but I see 5 cornerbacks. I see 2 outside cornerbacks that could step up. Josh Jobe is going to be starting out there. Nehemiah Pritchett could be also out there as well, and then Tariq Woolen could also very well be out there. Also, in Darian Kendrick, who we talked about a little bit ago as well. Those are guys who will probably step up in the absence of Devon Witherspoon, but that is a lot of key defensive players out for this Seahawks defense, okay? But overall, Seattle is still a very solid football team, both defensively and offensively. They've been a very sound football team. Now, people can't argue that they haven't necessarily played the strongest competition in the world. You played the New Orleans Saints. You won 44-13 in that game, by the way. You blew out the Pittsburgh Steelers 31-17, and then you had a close loss against the 49ers and a close win, really a game that they probably shouldn't have won, or at least was very in question that they should have won, against the Arizona Cardinals. So, there is a little bit of give and take here to the quality of opponents that Seattle has faced so far to this point. For the Bucs, and what they can do going forward here. First, we do have to talk about the guys who are out. Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, we know this. Jalen McMillan's still on the IR. Gedeke's on the IR. Cody Mock is on the IR. Kalijah Cansey is on the IR. Jamel Dean, Benjamin Morrison, Christian Izzy, these guys have all been ruled out for this game as well. So who is going to step up in these players' absences? Well, Rachaad White and Sean Tucker are certainly going to step up at that running back position. We've talked about that in separate videos already here on the channel. Also, don't really forget about Josh Williams. He may get a couple of carries in this game as well, but a lot of people are probably going to be excited to be seeing Sean Tucker get some carries in this upcoming game. In that wide receiver room, having Chris Godwin back is tremendously helpful, in my opinion. He was a little bit rusty last week, did struggle with separation and stuff like that, but should still be a very, very strong benefit to this Buccaneers matchup against the Seahawks, especially with their secondary ailing a little bit. Real quick, guys, I do want to say shout out to the sponsor of this channel. It is Sleeper. If you guys do use the code MrBucs, you will get a $100 deposit matchup, up to $100 whenever you guys do sign up. Also, no deposit needed. You guys just get a free $20 whenever you sign up on the app as well, by the way. So you absolutely cannot beat that deal, folks. Guys, make sure you go download the Sleeper app today and enjoy football the way it was meant to be. That is together. Another guy who should step up is Emeka Egbuka, who just got named the NFC Offensive Rookie of the Month. He's been doing a lot of great things. He leads the Buccaneers in receiving yards so far this year, by the way, with let me go ahead and see if I can see the exact yardage, 282 and 4 receiving touchdowns so far to this point. So he's been doing some great work. But one guy I don't think you should ignore is actually Sterling Shepard. 167 receiving yards this year. That's third on the team. Only Bucky Irving and Emeka Egbuka are ahead of him. So definitely don't forget about a guy like Sterling Shepard. With the Seahawks probably focusing a lot more on Godwin and on Egbuka, you could very well see a big game for Shepard in there as well. On the offensive line, it's still going to be Luke Haggard and Charlie Heck starting at right guard and right tackle. We know how those guys are at this point, which is, to be frank, not very good. So it is helpful that DeMarcus Lawrence is not playing in this game, but I am going to be very cautious and worried to see how Leonard Williams is going to do in this game. Jerron Reed and Byron Murphy, they could make life miserable for Haggard and Charlie Heck, in my opinion. Continuing on, though, to the defensive side of the ball, and also I just want to say this, like, in terms of the Buccaneers attack here, definitely try and pass the ball more, I think. Get Egbuka involved, get Godwin involved, get Shep involved. That is going to be a big note here, in my opinion. Get the ball out quickly. The Seahawks are hampered at cornerback. Take advantage of that and pass the ball quick and pass the ball often, in my opinion. Defensively, we know Elijah Roberts is stepping up at defensive end. Logan Hall is in there as well. But one guy I want to shout out is actually Elijah Simmons, who comes from a Seahawks division rival in the Arizona Cardinals. He looked pretty darn solid last week in the limited time that we saw him. So I am curious to see if Simmons is going to get more playing time going forward. It seems like he's a very good fit for this defense. So I am curious to see how he does going there. Now, for the offensive line of the Seahawks, you do have some interesting guys in there. Charles Cross is at left tackle. Gray Zabel is at left guard. Jalen Sundell is at center. You have Anthony Bradford at right guard, and then Abraham Lucas at right tackle. So this is definitely a capable offensive line, in my opinion. Sam Darnold's only been sacked 6 times through 4 games so far this year. So the offensive line is certainly holding up, but you need to see the pass rush do something. Villa had a couple of sacks recently. I hope he has a big game going forward in here. And to be frank, Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick need to step up. Each have 1 sack so far this year through 4 games. I mean, you know, they're only on pace to get like 5 sacks this year. That needs to improve. That needs to be better. Okay, that is just the fact of the matter at this point. Also, we need to see better inside linebacker play. Levante's not tackling well so far this year. Servassier Dennis is doing better in the run game, but it's still an absolute liability in the pass game. So I want to see this front 7 really step up and rattle Sam Darnold a little bit. In that cornerback room, Jamel Dean, Benjamin Morrison, well, they're not available. So who could step up in their absence? We've talked a lot about this, but Zion McCollum is going to be cornerback 1. Thank goodness he is still here, right? Josh Hayes is the only other outside cornerback on the Bucs depth chart right now, so he could get some more opportunities, although a lot of people's guesstimation is that Jacob Parrish is going to move from nickel cornerback to outside cornerback, and then they are either going to have Kendall Vidor slide into the nickel cornerback role, or possibly have Kendall Vidor play outside cornerback, or they're going to have Tyke Smith jump back into the nickel, and then have Kayvon Merriweather be your other starting safety in this game. It's a bit risky in my opinion because the Bucs are also very thin at safety right now because Christian Izien is out also. Rashad Wisdom just landed on the IR, as did JJ Roberts. He did sign Sebastian Castro to the team, but he isn't really ready to play yet. He's barely had time to learn the playbook. Another option the Bucs could and probably will do is elevating cornerback Bryce Hall from the practice squad to the active roster. He could get a lot of playing time in this game as well. I imagine it's going to be a lot of Zion McCollum going up against Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then just trying to figure it out against Cooper Kupp. And I know a lot of people may call him washed or past his prime, but he's still Cooper Kupp at the end of the day, and he can still pick apart undrafted and low drafted calibers of outside cornerbacks. So I think they may be in their best interest to throw Jacob Parrish out there and have him try and survive against Cooper Kupp, because that would probably give them the best chance, in my opinion. But folks, we'll see at the end of the day what happens here. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions about this game. I'd love to hear about it down in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know if you think the Bucs are or are not going to win. Give me your score predictions as well. I'll see you guys in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.